And blessed to be a part of your day. Kevin Miller in the morning, KIDO Talk Radio. Phone numbers 580-5436, 580-KIDO. Our great friend Dan Gaynor joining us from the Media Research Center from Newsbusters. Dan, good morning.
Good morning to you.
Good to have you with us on KIDO Talk Radio. Of course, Dan is east of the Great River. He's got relatives here within the Treasure Valley, so hello to the West Coast Gaynors. So we take a look at where we are. We've got Kim Jong-un and we've got the president meeting, and yet we have this crazy, wacky, zany Michael Cohen trying to do his best John Dean. Where do we begin?
Well, actually, before we even get to that, I just have to tell you, after our conversation last time where I mentioned about the 2.5, you told me about the 2.5 feet snow in the mountains. My brother sent me a photo from his youngest daughter. She was visiting some friends. I don't think real high up, but the snow was packed like about 3 feet off the ground against the window. It was just like, oh yeah, yeah. I was just talking about this on radio. This is one of those classic media try to set a narrative stories where president goes and tries to save society from itself and prevent nuclear war and prevent a nuclear power from escalating their technological advances to the point where they can strike America. Because that's really what the whole issue about North Korea is. It's not North Korea and South Korea anymore. It's North Korea and the United States. North Korea's missile technology continues to improve. It's purchased or stolen from other countries like Iran and Russia. And so the theory is that within the next year or two, they'll be able to strike Hawaii and soon after that, the West Coast. So, while North Korea can blackmail us a little bit now, the ability of blackmail us say, well, do what we want or we'll nuke American City. Well, then we'll strike back. Yeah, we know, but we'll still have nuked an American city. And, that's a bad spot to be in. So that would seem to be very important. Whereas Michael Cohen, a confessed liar, a liar who not only confessed liar, but he's going to jail for lying to Congress, testifies in front of Congress again. And the media decides, we're going to go to Hanoi where the negotiations were held. We're going to send all of our evening news crews to Hanoi, but we're basically going to focus entirely on Washington and Michael Cohen. And then in the course of things, where he, this confessed liar who's going to jail for lying, lied again openly to the point where even CNN, Dana Bash, and Jake Tapper called him out on it because he says, I didn't really want to go work in the new White House. Well, of course he did. Everybody in Washington knows he did. Well, and yet, that's the focus. This guy, this is all believable. No, it's not. It's a guy talking basically to get himself out of going to jail.
Right, and again, we have this narrative that all of a sudden he's the new John Dean, and one of your sites, Newsbusters, really did a great comparison on John Dean, and again, Newsbusters and the Media Research Center from the very beginning has documented the tilt from semi-objective reporting to agenda reporting now.
Yeah, we're full on in that era where the press try to set the narrative for every event. So before Trump even went, they said, everybody's afraid he's going to give away the farm to the North Koreans, because he's desperate for a deal. And then when he goes and doesn't like the deal the North Koreans offer, they go, this is a failure. Well, which is it? Making a bad deal is a failure. Trying, it's a thin reed of hope to try to negotiate with the world's worst dictatorship and try to bring peace. I pointed out in my piece for Fox that the Korean War that Trump is trying technically to end started when he was 4 years old. Now think about this. Everybody talks about Donald Trump being old. It started when Trump was 4. And the idea that, the media is, he can just easily do this. No, he can't. He's tried being friendly to Kim Jong-un because he knows how to deal with autocrats because he's dealt with people in New York real estate business all his career. And that's the same personality type just without nuclear weapons. And the idea that, that is somehow easy is just so ridiculous, and yet the press, push this. It's like how we've seen the turnaround on anti-Semitism in Washington, where the Democrats suddenly they're not really against anti-Semitism at all, but you'll see lots of rationalization of the press now.
Indeed. Dan Gaynor joining us, the Media Research Center. Were you surprised by the Cohen coverage?
No. At this point, I joked for a while back that I thought if aliens invaded Earth, they would get better media coverage than Donald Trump does. And then I pick up my paper and I see the coverage of illegal aliens. The Time magazine had a big piece today. This guy is conspiring to sneak in the country illegally and bring his daughter in illegally, and the risks they're taking, and all this other stuff. And that's entirely the kind of stories you'd see about the aliens. You'd have reporters going out, the aliens just came here because they're desperate. They just want a little piece of Earth. They don't want the whole thing. They only want to subjugate a few billion people. And you would get journalists who would write that story. And that's really where journalism is now.
Our great friend Dan Gaynor joining us, Media Research Center. Kevin Miller, KIDO Talk Radio, 107.5 FM, 580 AM. What do you make of the press just urging the Democrats on towards impeachment?
Well, it's sort of a two-factor. One, Tom Steyer spent $120 million running a separate campaign than Democrats last election. He literally was in every district in the country lobbying for impeachment. So a lot of the Democratic votes that he helped get out voted solely on that point. And the media know this. And in general, the most radical people on the left are the ones who want impeachment. They're the same people who want anti-Semitism. They're the same people who, want open borders, everything the most radical that comes from the left. And the press, that they mirror that political viewpoint. So here we're seeing now the collapse of Nancy Pelosi's leadership, where the most radical voices, Ocasio-Cortez, Tlaib, Ilhan Omar, the trifecta of young radical voices. They're the ones who are running the House right now. And the media, those are the ones the media are giving oxygen to. In the past, the media used to hype the least radical voices. Now they hype the most, particularly on the left. So, where we go from this, I expect that we will get an impeachment move, even though polling says that 93% of Republicans oppose impeachment. 70% of independents, the middle people that both sides need to woo to get them to vote for them, 70% oppose impeachment, and 30% of Democrats oppose impeachment. What we are watching right now is an attempt by the far left and the far left media who run them to reelect or to run George McGovern Part 2. Attempt to take an embattled president, because you remember, even though Nixon was popular, he was embattled by the hardcore left, to take an embattled president and defeat him with the most left-wing person they can possibly find.
Our great friend Dan Gaynor joining us, Kevin Miller, 107.5 FM, 580. What do you make of the Democrats not giving Fox News a primary debate?
Well, Donald Trump muddied the waters for that last night. He came out and said, well, if they're not going to give Fox a primary debate, maybe he won't give the left-wing media a general debate. And that genuinely could mean that we don't have debates in 2020. I remember he's the sitting president. The only reason he would debate is if he thinks he's got to beat back an opponent, or if it benefits him in some reason. They've just given him a reason to reject debates.
I think it's interesting.
I'm stunned.
Well, I think it's And I guess this is a broader sense. Here you have a lot of folks sometimes are very critical of all media, but they say Fox has gone a little more to the middle, if you will. And then all of a sudden, the Democrats say, well, you haven't gone middle enough. You're not fair enough. We're not going to give you a debate thing. And I just think that's very strange, don't you, considering Fox welcomes everybody on their shows?
Well, I mean, yeah, the problem is if you are a radical left-winger, then you think ABC, CBS, and NBC are conservative. And that's where most of the press, and certainly the Democrats now, fall. That they think ABC, CBS, and NBC are right-wing, but they'll go on them because, they're mass market. By our tracking poll, ABC, CBS, and NBC Evening News are 90 to 93% negative about Donald Trump. And the hardcore left thinks that's too conservative. So, of course, they think Fox is, unassailably right-wing and awful because of that. So, we've got an entire political party with a few candidates as an exception running in the far left lane. And no wonder they're saying no to this. That is where we are. This is who the left really has become.
And Dan Fanley, what do you make of this Congresswoman Omar's comments and really getting a pass by the media? Again, you document that in Newsbusters.
Well, I think she's a disgusting anti-Semitic bigot. And the press, again, who couldn't have seen this coming? If you look globally, there are 13 million Jewish people. 13 million, not a huge number. Globally, there's something like 1.5 billion Muslims, give or take. The Muslim community in America is rapidly closing in on equaling the numbers of the Jewish community. So this is purely the left playing a demographic game. They have thrown one group under the bus, and they've chosen the other because they think the other is more likely to help them. But they will say what they've done is chosen. Here's a fun word for breakfast. They've chosen the intersectional game. Everything in the left, if you understand everybody, you have to think in terms of victim groups. Well, the left, despite the fact that Jewish people were victimized in the 20th century more than every other group combined, pretty much, with the genocide, the Holocaust, nevertheless, the left has decided they're no longer a victim group, but Muslims are. Oh, Muslims are picked upon. Oh, Americans don't like Muslims, and so they're a victim group and Jewish people are not. So you look, and you have to look at the hierarchy of victim groups. If you are Muslim or you're transgender or somewhere part of the LGBT community, those are like the top two victim groups for the left. So if you're a gay Muslim, which, by the way, I think there's like one gay imam in America, so it's not exactly a big target market. Generally, it's looked down upon to the point where in many parts of the world, they kill you if you're gay, if you're, in the Muslim community. So this hierarchy of victim groups, the press are the ones who helped create this. That every story's got to be about a victim group. Everything, whether it is gays in computer games, which, by the way, is a story that's moving today. How poorly gay people were treated in computer games because you didn't think the world was intersectional enough. So the interrelation of all these liberal ideologies, whether it's LGBT or Islam or whatever, that's what they're trying to come to terms with. If you put representative group, let's say 100 members of each one of these lefty victim groups, and put them in a room and gave them weapons and said, by the way, you can either all work together or kill one another. You can come back in a week and they'd almost all be dead. Gays are wildly mistreated everywhere in the Mideast except for Israel, that the left spends all their time attacking. Muslims, don't stand Christians, and in most of the majority Muslim nations can't stand Christians. Christians don't get a chance to express their faith, their beliefs. The press, name me a majority Muslim nation that the press get fair treatment. That's another one of the lefty victim groups. It's an embarrassment. It's like watching the left put itself into a death spiral, and the press cheering it on, because that's the press wants everything in America dragged as far left as humanly possible.
Dan Gainor, we always appreciate you. Thank you, brother.
Thank you very much. I look forward to talking to you again soon.
All right, our great friend Dan Gainor joining us, Media Research Center. Coming up next, a tough day for the Secretary of Department of Homeland Security. She gets grilled before the young new females of Congress. Sounds like a new calendar, but very serious issues to discuss. We'll get your reaction next. You can always join the conversation with me, Kevin Miller, at 580-5436. You're listening to Kevin Miller on KIDO Talk Radio.
That memo, yes or no?
Yes.
Did you concur with this assessment made by your component agency leaders, yes or no?
There were many assessments in there. I concurred with their recommendation on what to do to increase consequences for those crossing the border illegally.
The piece that I just read, do you concur with that?
I'm sorry, could you read that particular?
DHS could also permissibly direct the separation of parents or legal guardians and minors held in immigration detention so that the parent or legal guardian can be prosecuted pursuant to these authorities. That specific statement.
As I understand it, we have the legal authority to do that, yes.
Did you agree with that?
What I agreed to do is
Did you agree with that?
But that
assessment that they made?
That wasn't a recommendation, ma'am. It's a legal statement. We do have the legal authority to do it, as I understand it.
Were you aware that the zero tolerance policy would lead to minors being separated from their parents, yes or no?
As we increase consequences for those who break the law, just as everywhere.
Look, I have such limited time, Madam Secretary. Okay. I'm sure you can appreciate that.
As a consequence for a parent going to jail, we in this country do not take the children to jail.
There we have it. Kristen Nielsen, Department of Homeland Security Secretary. What a wonderful, wonderful role model there in the midst of the devious little libs overcoming adversity. Basically, it comes down to this. Do you want to secure America? Do you want to have an America where your kids are safe from the drug dealers, from the terrorists, from all the coyotes, from all the people coming in, stealing American jobs? That's really what it comes down to, right? And we'll go over this, but the way they treated the Homeland Security Secretary yesterday, the devious little women of Congress, the congressional women, and it was lady on lady. It was very troubling to see, and it got very emotional. And unfortunately, what we're seeing here in the age of the Trump derangement syndrome, in the collusion delusion, whether it's here on 107.5 FM, 580 AM, KIDO Talk Radio, or throughout the country, is everything has turned into a screaming match. Everything has turned into yes or no. Yes, when you go to jail, your kids don't go to jail with you. When you break into America, your kids don't go to jail with you. They were enforcing the law, trying to keep us safe. And for that, this is what they get.
Okay. So I take that as a yes, that you understood that the zero tolerance policy was going to lead to minors being separated from their parents.
As it has in the last 3 administrations.
Yes. Okay. So the answer is yes. At the end of February, BuzzFeed News reported that you did not issue guidance on how to implement the zero tolerance policy until May 4th, which was...
There we have it. We're taking information, a congresswoman taking information from BuzzFeed. Remember, BuzzFeed is the discredited Russian yellow shower story concerning President Trump that has been debunked. But we have a female member of Congress, congresswoman who has been elected, Kathleen Rice, grilling Christine Nielsen on the separation policy. This is all old news. This is all old news. When you go to jail, you don't get to take your kids. Traffic and weather together, KIDO Talk Radio.
I'm just Channel 7's Eric Gebert.
Thank you, Ms. Slotkin. I think it's really important, continuing what Congresswoman Slotkin was talking about making the record very clear and not allowing any misleading statements. It was a policy announced by the Attorney General of this country that families were going to be separated. That was a policy. He did not say we're going to start enforcing a law. It was a policy by this administration.
Can somebody help me with this? When did it become a crime to enforce laws in America? And here we have, again, the rule of law states you come into America, you break the law, you go to jail. And we have this Congresswoman Rice trying to vilify the Trump administration for, as Kristen Nielsen said, if you're just listening, for the same policy of the last 3 administrations. No, really, the president is right. We need to build the wall. And personally, I think we need to build a wall around the state of Idaho. I was looking on Facebook the other night, and some farmer in Oregon wants us to take everything just east of Portland in Oregon and Washington. It would like triple the size of the state. However, we always joke about our friends in Oregon that they're welcome to join the Gem State if they will, come over to freedom. But here we have this person that is not, she's not making a point. She's not making anything that is substantial. She's looking for that soundbite, that gotcha moment, that emotional appeal, isn't she? This is what we're up against. At 580-5436, 580-KIDO. Oh, it gets crazy. It gets really bad. And you think to yourself, as a parent, as a grandparent, shouldn't our elected officials, men and women, behave more appropriately than this?
You let kids be separated without tracking them.
Oh, my.
Do you know
Please.
how outrageous that is, Madam Secretary?
Oh.
You have no feeling, no compassion, no empathy here.
Oh, boy. More on that in a minute. Time to wake up, everybody. Kevin Miller on 107.5 FM, 580 AM, KIDO Talk Radio. Good morning, Maggie.
Good morning, Kevin.
You know, I think we're on to something. First, we're starting to get hate email now. And we're starting to get people calling the switchboard when I'm not here, complaining that they don't like me advocating for repeal of the grocery tax. I can't believe this. Actually, our young lady that answers the phone, Cindy, not to be confused with Linda, sent me this message that some person called in. They were very upset with me in particular because of my continued insistence on repealing the grocery tax. I didn't know that we had a lot of people that were tax and spenders, that were big money libs. Who's in favor of the grocery tax? Now, again, the opposition to repealing the grocery tax has been like 3 people. But I thought in Idaho we were conservative. It's kind of, maybe we're flushing out the libs. More on that in a minute. Joining us now live from London, thanks to our exclusive agreement here in the Treasure Valley with Fox News Radio, is Simon Owen from London. Simon, good morning.
Good morning, Kevin.
You don't, you'd repeal the grocery tax, wouldn't you, if you were here?
I came into this conversation right at the end, thankfully, for my position, so I shall leave that to you.
Fair enough. Big story coming out of North Korea. Say it ain't so. They could possibly be rebuilding some underground and above-ground structures as a rocket site?
Yes, and President Trump's national security advisor, John Bolton, has been speaking to us on Fox News in the past couple of hours and has been echoing what President Trump said yesterday about this, that it would be very disappointing in the administration's words if this turns out to be true, although Bolton did also tell us that the president is open to talking again with North Korea, despite the summit between President Trump and Kim Jong-un collapsing in Hanoi, Vietnam, a week ago, with no deal between the countries on North Korea's nuclear weapons. Well, yes, a week after that summit fell to pieces, there is word of what's being described as increased activity at a couple of locations. Firstly, at the plant where North Korea is believed to build its long-range missiles. So these are weapons that are capable of hitting the U.S. mainland. And secondly, at a rocket launch site, which Kim Jong-un promised President Trump last year that he would dismantle. It's believed that site was partially dismantled last year, but now there are apparently indications that this facility is being restored.
Indeed, of course, this coming after the summit where it was so high-profiled, and John Bolton apparently, Simon, as you said, telling our friends at the Big Fox, what's next? Of course, we haven't heard any reaction from the president yet, or have we?
Well, I mean, when he was in Hanoi, certainly, he said that he might meet Kim Jong-un again. He said it might be soon or it could be a long time. That was in the sort of minutes after these talks collapsed in such dramatic fashion. So, yes, I mean, I think both sides are going to go away and regroup. And to be honest, the key thing, I suspect, is hearing from the North Koreans, although they do appear to be open to keeping dialogue open. Saying that, the question is, how does that tie in with these apparent developments that we think have been detected by South Korea's spy agency, which keeps a very close eye on North Korea, as does the US, using satellites and analyzing satellite imagery. If it was the case that this is North Korea restoring these sites and getting ready to go back to rocket launches and nuclear tests and all the things that caused such tension with the United States a couple of years ago, then if that was to happen, then there'd be no more negotiations. The whole process would collapse. Saying that, North Korea knows very well that South Korea and the US are watching with satellites. So some experts on North Korea are saying that, this may well not be them saying there's going to be a missile test next week, but rather it's an effort to pressure the US and South Korea to cut some kind of deal, almost a way of saying that, trying to suggest that they are willing to go back to the controversial testing program if a deal isn't agreed.
Boy, amazing when you think about this. The drama continues. Simon, we'll get you out on this one. Any word on Mr. Putin? Is he up to anything? I know you're watching him.
Well, actually, I'm only just back from Vietnam, so I haven't really been aware of anything he's been up to. But, I mean, look, there's always occasions when President Trump and President Putin will come into contact or at least be in the same room at various international summits, and we'll be heading into summit season in the next few months. So I'm not sure they're going to have another one-on-one summit anytime soon, but look, there will be occasions, inevitably, when you are world leaders at that level, you end up in the same room occasionally. So they'll be seeing each other at some time. Tensions this year, though, are dramatically higher than they were last year because there is the beginnings of an arms race, it seems, beginning to start with Putin laying out all sorts of plans for a new generation of weapons he wants to build.
Simon Owen, we appreciate it. Thank you, sir.
Thanks, Kevin.
All right. Phone number is 580-5436, 580-KIDO. I can't believe that people are actually defending the grocery tax. But look, that's what we love about this program, the ability for people to express themselves, whether they send us a pithy email, call in, or call the secretary. Don't really get what that really accomplishes, but if it makes you feel better, so be it. We'll get to that in a minute. By the way, news coming out of the legislature. Hey, they're really working on things of significance. We have and this is for all animal lovers. I happen to be one of them. Very happy about this, that Idaho will now have a pet-friendly license plate. Isn't that wonderful? That's right. You can buy a plate now. As if we don't have more and more of these personalized plates. You have your veteran plate. You have your favorite college plate. You have this plate. You have that plate. You have a hot plate. You have everything else. And now, all of a sudden, you can have a plate saying that a license plate saying that you're pet-friendly. Coming up, now they're considering another specialized plate saying, "Stop the hate." Do we really need a license plate saying, "Stop the hate, everybody"? Now, remember, the Idaho Department of Transportation offers 40 specialty plate designs, including Friends of the NRA, Peace Officer, Veteran, Support Our Troops, and Wildlife. So the idea that we pass a pet-friendly specialty license plate is great. I'd say we should pass a pet-friendly pet protection law, but that's been tried before and should be tried again, kind of like the folks at Canyon County. We love the folks at Canyon County, my neighbors, trying to look at building another jail. They have to try again because you got criminals on the loose. But coming up, here's one. What would you think of a license plate that's called "Too Great to Hate"? People are hailing this as really a wonderful thing. Let's bipartisan support. Chuck Winder, our great friend, and Sherry Buckner Webb of Boise, the Idaho Business Review Woman of the Year last night, coming up with this "Too Great to Hate." But isn't this a little trifle when we go back and forth on this? However, let's get back to the subject at hand. The Department of Homeland Security Secretary Kristen Nielsen was grilled yesterday, rather unfortunately, on trying to save America. Here's Representative Bonnie Watson Coleman, Democrat of New Jersey's 12th District, that's in Trenton, having this to say.
Enclosed into a chamber on a concrete floor represent to you. Is that a cage?
It's a detention space, ma'am, that you know has existed for decades.
Does it differ from the cages you put your dogs in when you let them stay outside? Is it different?
Yes.
In what sense?
It's larger. It has facilities. It provides room to sit, to stand, to lay down.
So did my dog's cage.
Now, again, she's comparing jails. This, and we have to laugh at this because it's too early to be angry, folks. It really is too early to be angry. We're comparing, detention centers, jails to cages, right? And this is, I guess we should call this segment Kevin Miller's segment on why we love Idaho. Could you imagine living in her district? Now, people may complain about Mike Simpson or Russ Fulcher or whomever else, but could you imagine if this young lady, or with all due respect, formerly young lady, would be your representative? Who voted for her? It gets better.
Are the jails different than the cages that you have allowed the children to be put in?
I'm sorry, which jails?
Are the jails that you put their parents in, or the adults that come here with children that you say are coming here illegally?
The detention centers?
That you say are coming here illegally. This is, you can't write this stuff. Well, they are coming here illegally. It's not allegedly, they're coming here illegally.
Most of them, no ma'am, they have a border around the outside, but they essentially sleep in dorm-like conditions.
So they live in better conditions than the children?
No ma'am, I just want to be very clear on this. As migrants are processed through the Border Patrol station, which were not built, again, for vulnerable populations, they're there for up to 72 hours.
I just want to know, if the children are in cages, what do you consider the detention facilities to be? Because I'm suspecting that you're putting children in places that seem to be less livable than these adults.
There we have it. So that you say are coming in illegally. And what's the harm in this? When you start questioning the ability to secure a nation, when you start questioning people that are actually doing their jobs and throwing doubt, you have a lot of people that don't listen to this program. You have a lot of people that lack the critical thinking skills. You have a lot of people that just don't get it. And again, they're not playing for what's right and wrong. They're playing to destroy the president. They're playing to destroy the idea of law and order. It gets even better. Let's continue on. Another Democratic congresswoman. This is Representative Nanette Berrigan from California. She goes back and forth across the border quite a bit, and she gets personal in attacking Secretary Nielsen.
Migrant protection protocol, but in that case,
Any asylum seeker who comes to a port of entry, you basically have just said
their claim.
Okay, well, let me tell you, Madam Secretary, either you're lying to this committee or you don't know what's happening at the border. And I have been there.
That's not very nice. That's just not very nice.
Firsthand, and I have seen it twice. More recently, it just happened on Saturday when I happened to be crossing the border with my mother. And I heard...
I happened to be crossing the border. Why? I didn't have anything else to do, so I thought I'd cross the border. Didn't really want to work for my constituents. I decided to cross the border. I'm sure, I decided to go cross the border into Oregon. Why? It's just something to do.
Gentlemen say, I'm from Honduras. I want to apply for asylum. He was already at the turnstile at the Ped West entry. And the agent said, sir, unless you have a visa, you need to leave. You need to go away. They didn't say what you just said people do. They didn't say, here is where you go get on a list. They didn't say, here is the information where you go get access to counsel. As a matter of fact, I pulled out my phone, I started to record, and you know what? I was asked to stop recording. Why? Because they don't want the American people knowing what is happening at that southern border. And Madam Secretary, I don't know if you know what's happening or if this is happening without you knowing, but it's totally unacceptable. And as a member of this committee, you're darn right I'm going to hold you accountable for knowing what's happening at the bottom. Do you know that 2 members of Congress had to sleep overnight and spend 14 hours in the cold on the concrete at the Otay Mesa port of entry so that Maria, the woman who was tear gassed at the port of entry, would be allowed to present herself because she was on U.S. soil, and legally that's what asylum allows? Did you?
Ma'am, what I know is I would ask you.
Yes or no? Did you know that 2 members of Congress had to do that?
I know that we have a process.
Okay, you obviously don't know. But see, this is what I'm saying. You don't know these things. 2 members of Congress. Does it take 2 members of Congress to be there to witness somebody presenting themselves for asylum at the port of entry? That's not what the law says. Are you familiar with the asylum laws, Madam Secretary?
Yes.
Where in the asylum law does it say that when you present yourself at a port of entry, and by the way, when you're on U.S. soil, that you could be sent by an agent to another port of entry? Is it anywhere in the asylum law?
What we're trying to do is process.
It's not in there.
See, again, this is not about getting to the truth. This is about embarrassing somebody who's doing a really good job. Let's go to the phones. Kurt in Boise with Kevin Miller on KIDO Talk Radio. Good morning, Kurt.
Good morning, Kevin. That's what I just wanted to call in about, was just the more these Democrats and these liars that Trump's ex-lawyer scream and yell, the more press they get. And the more they scream and yell and the press they get, the more they erode the American standard. So I just don't get it why people, I know it's the media feeding off each other with these people, but I don't understand why we can't stand up and say something. I mean, this lady was totally rude. Ortiz is totally rude. The Muslim new Congress lady is totally rude. But is that just how our country is going?
It would appear that way, and if you speak out, they seek to marginalize you. If you speak out, they seek to attack you and silence you. There's only one type of conversation, I think, unfortunately, that the left is going to allow, and that's their own.
I know, and what happens to the freedom of speech? They can have, the hate speech, if you will. She was being totally rude to the other lady. It was in a normal voice. She was screaming at her. Is that the new acceptable? So getting to our license plate, to me, that sounds almost like hate speech. She isn't communicating with the lady. She's screaming at her. So why should we have a license plate that says, we're too hate to great, when they're the ones that are the hateful ones?
I would agree, and we're going to get to that. Kurt, thank you for the call.
Thank you.
580-5436, 580-KIDO. We quickly go to Patriot Ray on KIDO Talk Radio. Good morning, Patriot Ray.
Good morning, Kevin. I'm wondering why we're allowing, or why Congress is allowing these individuals to keep saying the children in cages, when it's been proven that the pictures they kept throwing up on TV a couple of years ago and a year ago were all the ones that were from Obama's era. And that was stopped to the greatest degree. Now, is some of it still going on? Possible. But to the degree that they keep trying to point fingers at President Trump and those who are protecting our borders, those who are trying to protect our borders, and for them to say that a wall is immoral, that's immoral. The things that they're doing, how can anybody be a Democrat when they're willing to let children be killed up to the time of birth? And the way they're pushing it with this one mayor who's saying that maybe even a few days after they're born, if the mother doesn't want them, they could eliminate them then. These are the people that as they gain more and more power are going to be the ones that decide whether an older person gets help or is allowed to die or is put to death because they're a strain on the economy.
That's right, Patriot Ray. I got to run. Quick break. KIDO Talk Radio, your home for Hannity, KIDO Talk Radio.